Welcome my friends, Evan Gray here. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Last episode I talked about a new hobby, astrophotography, showed off a telescope there. This episode I want to show off my Astrorig, which is my newest telescope. Let's roll the intro and get into it. I'm out at my trailer here again, 10 acres of land in southern Arizona near the border of Mexico. And last episode I brought out the C-Star S50, which is a smart telescope. It's sort of all-in-one. You just sort of plunk it down and turn it on, use a tablet or a smartphone, and you're able to punch in a target, Jupiter or a galaxy or a nebula, and you punch in that, just click on the name and say go to that target, and it just slews around and goes up and down and finds it and matches the stars, and you click record and it just saves images. It's pretty amazing. So I played with that for probably 6-7 months, playing with smart telescopes, and decided I just love this hobby. And for Christmas and over the holidays, Black Friday, I decided to invest in a professional level rig, at least amateur professional, meaning that this is really pretty decent optics, and it's quite a bit more expensive than the $500 price tag with either the Dwarf or the C-Star. So this one you're probably looking at between $2,000 to $3,000 to get into a rig like the one I'm about to show you. So it's about 7 o'clock, sun sets in about an hour. Actually the sun is down over the horizon, but astronomical night doesn't start for about another hour or so. So I'm going to set up. First thing I do is I need to bring out multiple pieces and parts. So the first part is the tripod. Actually, this is two parts. It's a tripod and what's called a mount, which is the motorized unit that does the tracking itself, that controls the movement of where the telescope is pointed at. Two motors, one to go up and one to go sideways. And this thing has to be pointed exactly to polar north. So I have a little cheat thing I've set up. Let me show you that. Notice these little square bricks here that I got from one of my rental houses. And what I've done is I've taken some marker and I've drawn little circles around the edges, the tips of the tripod, so that I can put it in exactly the same place every time. On top of the tripod there's this unit here. It's an HEQ5, which is a mount, and this is a set of German motors and gears to do the tracking, and then there's a counterweight on there, and then the telescope gets mounted up here with these little knobs to tighten it up. So that's the next part, is I've got to bring out the telescope and all of the electronics attached to it, and it is a mess of wires. So this is the telescope. You can see a bunch of wires here, and it just sort of slides into the slot here. Get it lined up. And you tighten up these two knobs, locks it into place. So you can see that I have a mess of wires here. So I have a number of cords here that I've got to organize and plug in. The first two I plug in are here. This is to control the motor here from a controller unit. And there's two little plugs. This is a controller unit. It's called ASI Air. It's the thing that controls the telescope. It controls the motors, where it's going to. It's a miniature computer inside of here. And I have these cable organizers on the outside here. Next, over here on this side, I've got to grab my power cable, which is a regular like automobile cigarette lighter, and plug this in here. Organize the cables here, get them all onto this little thing so that they're not dangling too terribly much. It's okay for them to dangle out there a little bit, as long as they're not going down all the way to the ground or getting caught in anything. So those are the main wires here. Got everything hooked up except for the battery, so I've got to go get the battery pack and hook it up to this cable here. So that's the last thing here. Overall, I'd say this unit takes me about 10-15 minutes to actually get set up before I turn it on, and then probably another 10 minutes or so to go through all of the calibration and the startup routine and to do polar orientation, which is to get everything exactly to polar north and ready to go, and move to a big bright star and check my focus to make sure that the telescope's in focus. So there's probably 10-15 minutes worth of work after it is actually dark. So 10 minutes before sunset, about 15 minutes at first dark, and then after all of that, then it's like 10 seconds to go to a target after all of that. This is my battery bank down here. This actually is from Shell Oil Company, which is a little bit surprising. Plug in my power here, and then tonight when I'm ready to go, I just turn the thing on. Not sure why this particular unit is about half price. I bought it off of Amazon. I think it just was a little promotional thing that Shell Oil did at some point for automobiles, for emergency kits, sort of a ugly, not interesting power bank. But this thing is so big that it gives me all night and then some. I can go, like last night, I probably did 8-9 hours with this, and I was at 60%. So it is really awesome. I do have 2 dew heaters that I'm not using right now. So in the winter months, it probably will take that entire 100% of that battery if I'm running the dew heaters all night. Now I need to wait for it to be dark so I can turn on the unit, do my polar alignment, check my focus. It's getting dark enough now that I can turn on the telescope, and actually the telescope can start seeing some stars. Just looking up, I can probably see maybe a dozen stars up there right now. So this is about when I want to do it. I can still see enough to walk around easily, even though I do have my headlamp, which I'm holding in my hand right now so you can see my face. So I come out here and basically, so I've got to turn on the power down here. Let's see, where's the power? There's the power switch. Okay. Power is on. And here in a second, this unit will turn on up here. And you can see lights coming on over here. This is the controller unit. It's ASI Air. Most of my components are from a company called ZWO, ASI Air. And back here I have an astro cam on. Back here on the back I have an astro camera. I have a lens drawer. So part of my components are from this company here, SV Boni, which is the telescope, the filter wheel, and a thing called a flattener that actually gives you more round stars. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And then up here I have a tiny telescope, which is what's called a guide scope, and this is used for doing minor super fast corrections to where the telescope's pointing. So it sends directions down here through a cable down to the motor system with all the gears, so that it's able to direct it over to where it needs to be, so correcting it. So I can do really long exposures. I do about 3-minute exposures, but I could probably do 10-minute if I wanted. Alright, everything's powered up. Gonna pull the lens caps off here. Alright, so I go back over here, turn on the power. So basically I launch the app here, and it'll give it takes a second or so for it to find the network and then find the unit over there. So here I say enter device. Alright, so we're connected. Click on the little screen over here to go into PA, which is polar alignment. Click start. Here it's going in. It's found 93 stars for its first try. And now I click on next, and it's going to go rotate the scope. Over here, if you look at it, you can see the scope is moving. Alright, it's moving over to its side. So basically this is determining where the mount, where the tripod is located, and where the telescope's pointing. So it's pointing off towards polar north, and it's going to look at the stars and see how many stars are here. Alright, calculated, so let's go. And it says it's perfect from the first get-go. So that little marks that I put in the marker on the ground, on those little paving stones, are perfect. So it was perfect out of the box, and I just click finish, and now I'm able to go into my first target. So I go into the preview mode, and I click on the search and click on this little search button here, and we're going to go in here to I keep missing the little button. Here we go. We want to go to Vega, which is a very bright star, so that I can check my focus. So right here the telescope's going to slew, which basically means just use the motor and move over where it needs to go, over to where it's pointing at Vega, which is a bright star. And then I'm going to check my focus. This I think you'll find really interesting. Alright, it's finding it, it's checking the stars, it's doing a slight correction, and then it's going to check the stars again. And here in just a second there will be a bright star that will show up on the screen. Alright, slight correction again. And it's capturing the star now. It's loading it, and there's the star right in the middle of the screen. See that little star? I can make it bigger by just doing the pinch and expand command like you do on a smartphone. Now, this is the interesting thing, is how to get focus. Okay, I'm going to put a little plastic thing on the end of the telescope. It's called a Batinov mask. I'm guessing that probably is a Russian word, I don't know for sure. Batinov mask is a flat filter that goes on the end that has little slots. And as you can see here, they're in 3 different directions, and it will create star spikes on that star so that I can see if it's in focus or not. So I'll put this on the end of the telescope. Alright, so you can see here it's on the end of the telescope, and then I've got to go back over to my tablet, and then I have it set up right now for 1 second exposure. So I'm going to do 1 second exposure with that little Batinov mask, and it'll create a 6 star spike there. Alright, and that looks perfect. See, the center one on each side needs to be in exactly the center of the X, and that means it's in focus, which it is. So right on, that's perfect. At this point I can go back into the trailer, wait about another 30 minutes for it to be full dark, because there's still like light blue on the horizon, so I still have too much light really to get a good dark image. I could start imaging now, but it doesn't really create really bright, dynamic, good information for what I want to capture. So I'm going to go back inside, wait a little bit. Tonight I'm going to capture the Crescent Nebula. It goes above the horizon about 9 o'clock, so about an hour from now, and then it will be up pretty much all night. So let's see, 3 plus 4, 7 hours of data that I'll be able to get tonight on the Crescent Nebula. Should be no clouds. I don't see any clouds up right now, and I've got about 2 more nights before the clouds roll in for the 2 months of monsoon season here in Arizona. Well, it's about 9 o'clock, so it's time to send my telescope over in the direction of the Crescent Nebula, where it's going to stay for 7 hours capturing 3-minute images. I'll be able to keep the majority of those, maybe reject 2 or 3 for satellites and other stuff like that that go through the frames. There's not that many satellites down where I'm at, and the skies right now are so dark. It's pretty much a perfect night. I'm right on the edge between Bortle 3 and Bortle 4. By the way, Bortle is a light pollution rating. 10 is just terrifically bad. Like Los Angeles, New York, Tokyo are going to be like Bortle 9 or 10. And Bortle 3 is pretty much like country little towns or out away from little towns. Bortle 2 is like you're miles and miles from any cities or any lights. Bortle 1 is like just perfect seeing. It's just crazy good. So I'm in a very, very good location, Bortle 3. So anyway, let's set up the telescope now and send it over to Crescent Nebula. Alright, I go to this screen here and I click on the search thing and I just start typing in the name Crescent, and so it should pop up here in a second. C-R-E-S. There it is, crescent. Here it gives a bunch of information about the nebula, shows you when it's going to get to its apex at the top here, and that's going to happen at 3:56. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it just a little bit before that. But let's go ahead and send it over there. Click on that little blue arrow and click Go To. Now the telescope here is going to slew over to this target. It's about 15 degrees above the horizon right now, which is about where you want to start shooting images. Anything below that, you're going through a lot of atmosphere and it's going to start distorting the picture. So right now it's confirming. You can see down here it's confirming the target. So it's looking at the stars right now to make sure it's centered and validated, and it is. And there we go. It gives a quick preview. By the way, up here in the top left, this is the guide scope. So we can click on that and we can see that it is focusing on stars here and getting a good star tracking. And we can close out of this menu and go back to the main one. Now to set up my run for the night, I go into, to set up my run for the night, I go into Auto Run and click on Configure, and I'm going to configure 180 seconds, that's 3 minutes. And I want to go till just short of 4 a.m. It's about 9 right now. So we've got 3 hours till midnight, and then 4 till 4 a.m. So that's a total of 7. 7 times 20 is 140. And I'm going to subtract just a little bit because we've got that meridian flip that I don't want to hit. So let's do 135. Alright, so that's a little short of 7 hours. Click OK. And exit out of this. And we're ready to begin. I'm going to set it up to where it will turn off the entire thing, power down, and move the telescope to the home position. So shut down and go to home after it's done. Click confirm, and now it's started. You can see the countdown here for the first image. So I'm going to let that run for about 7 hours. Here in about an hour or so I'll be going to sleep, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night a couple of times, look over at the tablet, which will be sitting on the bed right beside me, just to make sure it's still running and that there's no major difficulties. But I've done this enough times that I know that it's going to run just fine, and just a little short of 4 a.m. in the morning it will return the telescope back to pointing north, so it's not pointed at the sun when the sun rises and fry the telescope and the camera. So we want to point it back towards north and then power everything down, and then when I wake up in the morning I'll come out and just put the lens caps back on and take everything back inside. I'll be able to download all the data. It's captured onto a little USB stick and transfer it to my computer, where I'll be able to edit it with software to make some nice looking images. So pretty much that's it for tonight. I'm going to close out this episode and just let you see some images I've taken. I'll include the Crescent Nebula and the image there. It looks pretty much like a little orange or red bean with a background of all sorts of red or pink clouds. So it's a pretty spectacular looking object up in the skies, and tonight it's up all night long, so I wanted to capture this before the monsoon season comes. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about astrophotography, and if you like it, give me a thumbs up, write a comment that you enjoyed this. If you hate it, write a comment down there and let me know that you don't really care for this kind of stuff, and I'll gauge whether I'm going to do anything like this in the future with this channel. But given it's a vlog channel, it's sort of what I'm into and what's going on in my life, which is why I'm sharing this with you. Thank you so much for watching. Savor the moment, and I'll see you in a future episode.